Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza. Every week, my guests and I share the answers we found to the questions we have. Join us as we explore and expand our worldview and ask, What's my thesis? And today, my guest is Quinn Alexandria Hunter. And what I've been really excited about this conversation because it doesn't usually happen that I've talked to an entire social circle of people before I get to somebody. I guess the last person in the group. First of all, thank you so much to Chelsea. I don't know if anybody ever refers to her as Chelsea as fuck, but this is like she really hooked me up with some really interesting people. I was telling so I don't know if you know who I've spoken to, but I've spoken to Claire Gatto. I've spoken to Sarah Nishikawa. I've spoken to Gerald Collins. So like at this point, I feel like I was telling Sarah that I'm gonna end up just showing up in Detroit and knowing all of her friends, and she's gonna be like, "Who the fuck are you? Have we met?" I'm like
Perfect.
inserting myself into her life at this point, but it's hilarious. So, how do you know Chelsea? Oh, and it's Chelsea A. Flowers. Her name is actually not actually Chelsea as fuck.
Oh, it should be though. It should be.
But I think
So
she. I mean,
Chelsea,
I don't think I came up with that. I think she plays into it by going by Chelsea AF, right?
yeah,
It just felt good. I felt familiar enough to say the curse words.
yeah, no, Chelsea's bomb.
No, she's
We
great.
actually met in the spring of 2020. We were in a group show together before COVID shut down.
Oh,
So
okay.
we were in a show together in Granville, Ohio. Um, And if you don't know where Granville, Ohio is, it's okay. I didn't know either. Um, it's about 30 to 45 minutes east of Columbus.
Is this where Cranbrook is?
No.
No. So
Yeah. No.
you're a different faction of the Detroit friends that I've been introduced to. Okay.
Yeah. That's actually where Denison University is. Another private
Denison.
liberal arts school.
Okay. And is that where you that's where you guys went to school?
No. Well, Chelsea went to Denison. I went to Ohio University, which is in Athens, and not Athens, Georgia, but Athens, Ohio.
I didn't know
So
there was one, but it makes sense. And okay, and so I've definitely took a peek because sometimes I forget to take a peek at people's work because, like, as you know, I book things like way in advance so that I don't
yeah,
end up
like
like,
May.
yeah.
Yeah, like I completely forgot.
No, this which is why it was totally okay, you know. But anyway, when we had to reschedule, I totally understand. Like, no one's this fucking neurotic about shit.
But it's
But
so
it's
good though.
no, well, it just keeps me from like having to scramble and have like I'm just getting better at booking guests, obviously, because the conversations that I've had with everyone from Detroit that I've been introduced to have been amazing. So I think that that's like an even better way of curating these things, and I'm definitely going to be hitting people up for that in the future. But it's a small world too because Sarah knows people from Monte Vista, which I've just become a part of, and so it's like it's a really small like the art world is also really small. The more you get out there, you
It's
know.
so tiny. Like
Yeah.
be nice. Be very,
Yes.
very nice.
Although, but it also it's I will say I was just thinking about this because of a conversation that I had with Sarah. I literally recorded Sarah's episode yesterday, so that also sometimes it's important to burn bridges. Certain bridges need to be burned. Like in a professional sort, not like oh fuck your mama, you know, but like but sort of but in a look, you know what, I don't feel safe working with you, you're pulling some weird things, so like I don't want to work with you anymore, you know,
Yeah,
and like
no.
just like ending it like that, like just professionally, like not like again,
Yeah,
not
professional boundaries
insulting.
are really important.
Yeah, but anyway, so you're originally from Detroit? Are you just in Detroit?
My journey is a long one. So
Okay.
I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, born and raised. My
Okay.
parents, oh, Well, technically, my mom's from Oklahoma, but her dad was in the Air Force. So she lived in a bunch of different places, including like Taiwan. But he got out of the Air Force
Your
in
dad or your
Miami.
mom? Sorry, your dad was
Sorry.
in.
Well, my dad was also in the Air Force, but my
Okay.
grandfather.
Your grandfather.
So my
Okay.
mom's
And
dad.
so
So
your
she
mother
grew
grew
up
up. Yeah, I got you.
in Miami because that's where he got out of the Air Force. And so I guess technically my family's from Miami. My brother claims 305,
Oh,
even
what?
though he
Did you
left
do a
when
lot of
he was
drugs?
4. No. Oh my God. I have too much anxiety for that.
I just love that. That's my like. Hey, you from Miami? You snort cocaine?
You know, I have heard some stories about Miami and
I've told some stories
the
about
white
Miami on
powder.
this podcast. So, but okay, we don't have to talk about how wild Miami is. So you grew up there? Like what area?
North Carolina. I
Oh,
grew up
so
in North
no, so
Carolina.
he was there when he was 4, and then you were in North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was born and raised in North Carolina. I claim North Carolina as my home.
What's the
But
area
I was
code there?
704.
Do you guys call it out like 305 people, or are we just the only ones?
I think you
I've
guys
ne-
are the only one. You know what? I think Pitbull made that a thing.
Maybe
But,
he did. No, but you know what? 305, take it to the house. Trick Daddy, Slip and Slide
oh,
Crew.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
305 is a thing.
It's a thing.
It's really
It's a thing.
weird. There's only 786, and that came later, and apparently that spells out sun. So, but no one claims 786 because fuck 786. It's 305. It was like that when I was growing up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so you're from North Carolina. When did you decide like art was a thing for you?
Ooh. You know, it was never really a decision.
Obviously, it was a
I
burden.
mean,
But when were you so burdened?
oh God, you know, that's always the hardest question because it was like I feel like every little kid starts out drawing, and then for me, I just never stopped.
Okay,
Right? I
but you
mean,
don't
it
draw.
just
I mean,
expanded.
your latest work is really interesting. Which I definitely remember this from from back in May when I saw it. Uh, And I'm excited. Sometimes you think that you just see something and you don't know that you've booked the person for the show because like things that get disconnected in your brain. So I'm really excited to talk to you about these. So you're doing. I'm going to use my terminology. I hope it doesn't upset the
I'm super chill.
aesthetic. But there's definitely a. It's not exclusively collage because sometimes it's about cutting things out, but it's not paper. It's materials with different textures. It's like fabrics, textiles with different textures, right? There's some diamond stitch stuff as a background, and then you have some really tightly woven, figurative, almost photographic, but like, like how tintypes you lose resolution, like that,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not like, but it has the texture of being woven. Is that what it is? Am I describing this
Yeah.
appropriately?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Are you being able to picture what I'm looking at?
I
'Cause
well, I made what you're looking at. So
yeah, but sometimes I describe things to people and they're like, I don't know that piece. So it has to do with my description skill. But yeah, and then there's some stuff that's a little bit that gets a little bit more colorful. We've got tassel edges on the top and the bottom. How does that end up looking? Do you display them on the wall?
yeah, they're like wall hangings.
So do those tassels like kind of drip down, or are they sturdy enough?
They're sturdy enough that they just sort of like fray up.
Okay, I can see that. This is so cool. I really, really, really like this. Do you sometimes just pin stuff, or is this a work in progress? The last post.
Oh God, when was the last time I posted?
Oh, it's all good. It's do you just like do you sometimes just use like not safety pins, but like little pins to hold things in place, and that's the finished piece, or is that
You mean
a
these
process? Yeah,
babies?
those things. Yeah,
No, everything is always
stitched in when it's
stitched
finished.
in.
Okay.
Yeah, insurance like stitched in.
No, yeah. I mean, that sounds like that seemed the way I was looking at it seemed so precarious. I was like, oh.
Oh, you know what? That might be like a work in progress.
No,
That
no, I think
was
that's what it is.
okay.
But yeah, so okay, so now I've described it somewhat visually. I think maybe if you can talk a little bit, but we will get into your topic too. But I do want to talk about the work because I want to encourage people to look at it because I have been excited about it. Then there's some stuff also as I scroll farther down. You do a lot of stuff with I guess you're like actually straight up making these carpets, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so then there's like the grid system, and then you pulling whatever it's called through. Is
hair.
there what is this like human hair or like?
No,
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 okay.
it's
Because I
weave.
see some stuff braided stuff here, and I talked to Chelsea about hair, and it's completely out of my experience.
Yeah, no, it's all weave.
So it's weave,
Yeah.
but that's what I meant by hair.
The only actual hair that's like human hair in it is my own.
Okay, but it is like weave that you would use for your hair.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I meant. I'm sorry, my vernacular is not there.
No,
And
it's cool.
then
I mean, because there
go,
is human hair that people buy,
yeah, that's
but
that.
this is all artificial.
Yeah, Chelsea had talked to me about that, and then I was like, she was like, it depends what kind of human hair, and I asked her if it was like what kind of body hair, and but she meant like Indonesian and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you've got some stuff. Do you do performance like figurative performance too?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I would say that my practice is probably like 75% object making and 25% performance.
all right. No, it's all really interesting. That's why I kind of just wanted to rapid fire give people an idea of what kind of stuff you're making. Um, what's so I see these pieces with like really long, or it's like a stripe pattern, and then on the edges
Mhm.
it has sort of like these iconic things. Maybe this is a bound to fail by describing. This is where you made the work, but you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like there's some
I think
pieces.
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a rug. It's
Hmm.
hanging. It
Black and
has
brown.
black and brown, and then it's surrounded by sort of organic shapes.
Hmm. And what's the decision making? Because it makes me think there are some iconic things in there that are kind of inescapable for me in my experience.
Hmm.
But I wanted to hear you maybe talk about what the organic shapes are, because some of it kind of looks fire twiggy, and then some of it looks like kind of fish like but ambiguous. It's not like your Jesus fish. It's sort of like blobby, like from the side angle. It could also be three-dimensional, but since it's flat, it just kind of reads like
Hmm.
an amorphous blob.
Yeah, so that's God, I can't remember the name of it.
It's all good.
I think it's 116 hours of negotiation between the world and me, and that's the first rug that I made. It's latch hook with weave. That's all artificial weave. So it's not human hair. And the iconography on it is actually there's
But it's
13
not
stripes.
like it's not carpeting material, right? It's like
No,
again, it's you're appropriating an object that is made for hair, like to wear on someone's head, right? Not to.
absolutely.
Okay,
I take
just
it
wanted
out
to
of
make
the
that clear.
bundles.
Yeah, yeah.
I take it out of like the prepackaged bundles,
It
and
comes
then
in a bundle.
yeah.
I don't have hair. If you're just listening, so hair, to me, hair is body hair, and like the beard hair. So go ahead. It's been a while. It's been like at least I lost my hair in my 20s. So
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So it comes in like these prepackaged bundles, and I actually all of the hair that I've used in the work has actually been ordered from Amazon, um,
okay.
which is actually a funny side story that maybe I'll tell later. Um,
Hmm.
actually, I can tell it really quickly.
Yeah.
So what's really funny is that Ohio University is a majority white institution, and I didn't pay for a single bundle of hair myself. I was able to convince this majority white institution to buy me, a black woman, like $6,000 worth of hair weave.
How did you do that? How like
I
was
wrote
it just white
grants.
guilt?
Probably. There's probably some guilt in there. But what ended up happening was I wrote three different grants, and then by some kind of miracle, I got all of them, and it
What?
totaled out to be around, I want to say, $11,000.
Wait, so you got so your grants were $11,000, and then you spent 6 grand on hair.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Did you wear any of it?
You know, I actually the only time I've ever worn weave has been for performances.
Okay, because that was one of the things that I asked the same thing. Because Chelsea's whole thing was a performance while she was doing her hair, and it was
Hmm.
fucking hilarious, obviously, right? And so what? But one of the things that blew me away was that like she was like, sometimes she sees little kids and she's like, "Where are you getting the money for that?" You know, like how much is 6 grand worth of weave?
You know, that's why I got it from Amazon because
But
this
like, how
stuff
much? How much does it
cheap.
weigh?
Oh, okay. So all of is that is only part of the hair that I bought. There's a closet that's right next to me, and then also I have a basement that also has like a bunch of hair in it.
Could you jump on it like a bed? Is it that much?
Yeah.
All right, that's
Like
such a satisfying image. So that's what 6 grand worth remaining after your pieces is worth. Damn,
yeah,
you
I
can't.
mean it's cheap hair.
Can you? Yeah, no.
It's
I mean,
cheap.
obviously you're gonna walk on it, and the important. And then so okay, so looking at it again, the stripes, they're very American
Hmm.
flag inducing, but you don't have like a cutout square. You have some stuff that's happening on the outside of this really. It's so weird how like the brown lines with the black just still like read like American flags. I don't. I mean,
Well, there's 13 stripes.
is that what it is? It's the
There's
number.
13 stripes.
You
That's
nailed it
how.
because like that. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. And then there's some the lines that are. Oh, okay. So is there like I don't know. I no, I was gonna say something, but I didn't want to make it too literal. But there's fire, and then there's fish-looking things. I'm like, is it like a Christian nation on fire? No, sorry.
Oh my god.
I'm
I
making
mean,
myself gag with my
it's
thoughts,
on fire.
but no, yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, so we've got an idea of what you're making. We can change
Yeah.
the subject.
Well, I do want to
Unless
note that the organic shapes that you're seeing are actually various stages of drying tobacco.
okay. Well, that
That's
is
also referencing. So those like that stripe is also referencing aerial cornrows
okay.
too. So North Carolina is the tobacco state,
That's right.
where I'm
That's right.
from.
Interesting. What about these text pieces before we get into your topic? Because we are going
Text.
to start segueing. I'm tired of treating my aggressors with such care. Oh, okay, I get it. You don't have to explain that. I cannot absolve you of your sins, guilt, or pain. I am only a woman. I'm not magic. And I'm sorry if my read is like so.
Oh no, you're good.
It's. I feel like I should be like selling these a little bit more, but I'm not good at reading. Uh, this too shall pass. The and then also the screen that I'm looking at you on is blocking the view. The days my body doesn't feel like home, I treat it with the most care. Okay, well you don't have to get into that. Those seem very personal, unless you want to talk about it.
I mean, they were just like these things that I was making every day to like really get into my practice during uh like grad school. And so
Okay.
I was like literally just like reacting to what was happening. And like I posted them on Instagram. They're
Yeah.
like really like public statement or like private statements made public, but so many people could like
Yeah.
identify
Well,
with them.
the only reason I keep reading them is because they're interesting to me. So I have a few on. I'm not a guilty pleasure. I am not negotiating. There's a bunch, so I'm not going to go through all of them. But now I'm getting into like the meat of it. I only saw the first couple. I'm gonna find one that I really like.
God, I haven't thought about these in years.
No, it's fair. I don't know how active you are on Instagram, so I don't know how to teach you to care. These are great. These I'm glad that I'm pulling out your old work and it's not like embarrassing.
No, I mean
No,
like
they're
I
actually
was
really interesting.
in a super like the first time I really lived in a super white area and I felt like this like other little black spot, and it was
No,
like
that well, okay. So tell me what like North Carolina was like. I mean, I feel like with you guys, with the Detroit friends that I've just made. I'm not calling you a friend yet. You have we it's you can decide if we're friends. There's still time.
we're
I'm
friends.
not putting that pressure on you. Uh, um, I feel like it does feel a little looser because I have an idea of the vibe of the social circle, and I guess that you guys are maybe a little bit closer than I anticipated. Like it feels like Detroit is like a tighter knit community.
I don't know. I mean, I only moved here about a year ago.
Oh, okay. So,
And Chelsea's my only friend so far.
oh, okay. So you're not part of the.
Pandemic.
All right, because when I talk to well, let me introduce you to some good people. Gerald and these guys, they've been in Detroit for a while, so you'll probably end up meeting them. But they're really really sweet people. But I want to get a sense of what now that I understand how you tie into Detroit because you're part
Mm-hmm.
of the scene now, undeniably, right? Like even though you've been there a year, you're active and whatnot. So I want to give you your place, but I understand if you don't want to claim Detroit. I feel like Sarah was really helpful in helping me understand because she had been some time in LA in helping
Mm-hmm.
me understand the difference between LA and Detroit and the size of the scene. So now I want to ask you a little bit about North Carolina because that's completely out of my. I've only driven through North Carolina. I have a sense of like, you know, what a lot of the white people in Miami and Florida love, like Asheville and all of those
Mm-hmm.
places, which seem like, you know, there are some places where I pass very much as white, but then there's some very places where I very much pass as Middle Eastern or
Mm-hmm.
like ambiguously like uncomfortable making, like where I'm in, you know, so like I used to drive out of Miami, which is very Cuban, and where cops
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Oh, nice Cuban boy," but then I end up going through all of Florida, and then through the South and all of that. But did I need to be that worried?
You know, it's actually really interesting because I'm actually going to turn a light on in here. It's really interesting because we don't consider Florida the South.
I know that's my that Florida is its own kind of fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, like that whole meme, Florida man. God, it's so true
I
though.
lived that life. Like,
Um,
I mean, I didn't wrestle an
yeah,
alligator, but any drug related stories, I probably.
yeah. You know what? North Carolina is a really beautiful state, and it has its interesting people. Um, there are places in North Carolina I would not get out of my car.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
In what for
Um,
what reasons? For what reasons?
there are a
Too
lot of
white
people.
or too poor or too dangerous and
I
poor.
would
I don't
say,
I didn't want
well,
to like shit on poor people, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah. I mean, there are places I wouldn't get out of my car for, I guess, a multitude of reasons, but like there are like really like
rural, that's fine.
rural areas um, that they're flying 10 different Confederate flags, right? Like they haven't lost the war yet, and there are like diners that have
Is it for real
burgers.
like that, or like is it for real like they haven't lost the war in their mind? Like cause I'm asking because I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
asking
I
because I'm
mean,
skeptical. I want to know.
no, there are people that absolutely believe that the South will rise again.
What does that mean to them? Do you know?
You
It's okay
know,
if you don't.
I can't, I can only attempt to get inside of their mind, but
Okay.
there's this like really like sort of deep belief that after the Civil War ended, a lot of like white families lost their like livelihood, they lost their income, and like that like battle mentality of like fighting for what's theirs, even though it was never theirs in the first place, um, is still there. And it's not, I mean, like, those families are like few and far between, but it's like when you are driving, you're like, oh, there's like a Confederate flag. Cool, not gonna stop for a few miles. Or, you just like you are in your car and you just get a vibe, right? Like you don't see any other people of color around. You're just like driving down the highway and you're like, oh, I just saw like a weird like matte black pickup truck with a lift kit, and I don't know, and they're like blacked out windows, and I don't know what's happening behind those windows. And like growing up in North Carolina, it's not like it's said, but it's like almost like these learned things of like, oh, like I don't know if that's safe. And I mean, I'm very upfront about like what my biases are. Like this is part of like my own personal bias I'm like working through. Like I shouldn't be triggered by like a lift kit on a pickup truck, right? But like it's also part
And
of like
truck
this
nuts.
yeah. Oh my god. The first time
I
I
know.
saw one of those, I was like,
I just want to throw in that those people also make me incredibly uncomfortable because I feel I feel like there is definitely a sense of so then the answer to my question, we can keep talking about it. I don't want to
yeah,
cut it, but it seems like the answer to my question is that you noticed the same things that I did driving through North Carolina.
yes.
And then
And
and
there's
we
like really good places like
like south of the
Charlotte and
border. I'm kidding. For people that
um
don't know, that's like a tourist trap that's between South Carolina and North Carolina. And it was literally, I used to drive from Florida to, from Miami to Maine, to
oh
Bethesda,
wow.
Maryland. Not Maine, sorry. Bethesda, Maryland. Sorry. That's a lot less wow. But I would do it in one day. With and like that was like my like sit down and eat
Wait.
lunch and just chill. It's like this like Mexican themed like rest stop between North Carolina and South Carolina. It's
Oh,
fucking hilarious.
oh
And
that
Pedro is
place.
their mascot.
For those of you that are
But
listening, I'm just shaking my head.
yeah, but I think that illustrates it's like cool and kitsch, but it's also problematic, especially
Yeah.
because Mexicans don't even live out there. Like it's not even like if it was in California, it's just such a weird. It's like North and South Carolina, and we're gonna call that the border between. It's very weird centric.
It's it's like basically any place that there's a university is okay, right?
Okay,
Because there's like progressive thought,
like Savannah in
creative
Georgia.
types. Yeah, like it's like, but it once the like more rural, it gets a little more questionable. Um, but then after I left North Carolina, I lived in rural Appalachia for three and a half years.
Whoa, where's that? What part of the world was that? I mean, I know
Um,
where Appalachia is, but it's a long trail.
yeah, that's true. In Ohio, Southeast Ohio,
Okay.
about 40 minutes west of the West Virginia border.
Okay. Well, Ohio, I think from what I get the sense, I mean, Dave Chappelle lives there. My sister used to live there too, and she saw him there. So like, and the way he talks about it is like like it's just a lot of opiate addicted like white people, but they're not necessarily evil and racist in the same Southern way. Is that accurate,
You know,
or is everybody racist? I mean,
I mean, there's levels to it, right?
yeah. Do you
I
are there?
mean,
Well, I guess it's not fair to ask if there are places there that you wouldn't feel safe. Like there are definitely places in fucking Florida that I don't feel safe, and I'm not a black person, right?
Florida's
Like
an
there's
animal.
rural. It can be terrifying. Those are the people that want the guns, and those are the people whose like First Amendment thing is kind of makes sense because if I lived in the middle of fucking nowhere.
I mean, it's like it's just really interesting because like I thought that I would absolutely hate rural life,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I'm not saying that I'm like gung ho ready to move back, but there was a slowness to it and a peace to it that like is just different, right? Like I lived in like New York City. I lived in like downtown Richmond, and it was just like such a fast paced thing. And then
What's
like
Richmond like? Richmond scares me a little bit.
really, so what's interesting about Richmond is that it is really
Virginia,
like,
by the way.
oh
We're
yeah,
talking about
Richmond,
my whole
Virginia.
drive to Maryland, basically. Like
You
I
know,
have abandoned whatever anybody else gives a fuck about listening to. Like the audience is gone.
yeah, and it's like, oh, yeah.
So
But like,
what's Richmond like?
yeah, so I lived in the heart of Richmond on Broad Street, which is near VCU. I was doing a program at VCU for a year, and Richmond is inner city is black. It's
Okay.
majority black, majority students. But then the outer part of Richmond is wealthy, white. And then right through the heart of Richmond, which I think most people know about by now, is Monument Avenue. And there's this god awful, massive, like just it's in your face. You literally have to drive around it. Statue of Robert E. Lee on a horse.
Yeah.
And
did you say it was majority black, the inner city?
yeah, majority
Is
black, majority student.
that's the result of white flight, essentially?
I haven't dug into the history of Richmond, and I should. But I would
Is
say
that safe to
probably
assume?
it's pretty safe to assume that it's white flight, right? Like that's the history of cities and
But
redlining, greenlining.
I love the severity with which you speak. That or the consideration with which you speak. That is, I don't know. That fits into what we're doing here. Okay, so all right, we're done with the I-95 portion of the show. We've gone through Florida. We mentioned Savannah, Georgia. We mentioned South Carolina, south of the border. We have, yeah, dude, we've hit everything. We hit Virginia. There's no other states between Maryland? Yeah, I think that's it.
DC state?
It should be.
It should be. It should be.
It should have a fucking star right in the middle of the flag, just disrupting the whole shit. I forget what the stripes. What do you know what the stripes represent?
13 colonies.
Yeah, there should definitely be a fucking DC star right in the middle of it. Okay. Thank you for humoring me, but I did really enjoy getting to know. Okay, so like for me, the closer I got to the greater Washington area, the more. So like Florida considers itself a melting pot, but it's basically, yeah. Or I mean, Miami, Southern Florida, considers itself a melting pot. Even the Keys, which fuck that, because the Keys are the whitest fucking place I've ever, like old white people, translucent skin.
And pottery.
What's that?
And pottery.
Yes,
They're
definitely.
really into pottery.
Yeah, but so and that's where the closest that now we've gone all the way to the tip of Florida. We've just done the whole East Coast that we've experienced, and then you went Midwest, so we've covered that. But yeah, the most southern point in the U.S. is 90 miles away from Cuba, and I've been there, and I've never been to Cuba, so that's the closest I've ever been to Cuba. Not to get there's political resentment in this whole episode, but when I would get closer to DC, there was a lot of two things. It was the most Persian dense community that I had been a part of, and that's when I started to realize that like I have roots that maybe I don't know because I'm Spanish, but like everybody thinks I'm Arabic, and like now I need to go back. I know my grandfather's name was Israel, on my dad's side. So there's definitely crypto Judaism that seems to be there because like he was born before Israel was a state, you know. So, but I found like the DC area was the place where I was most challenged by my own prejudices of how I was perceived by people. And then sort of like I'm not one of those, and then just like what is that reaction, So all of that place was like really interesting. And then once I got here, nobody thinks I'm Hispanic at all. In Los Angeles, everybody thinks I'm either like I've been called Taliban. It's like I have never identified with the prejudices against another culture to the point where I'm like, I think I must be some fucking level of Persian or I haven't done the research. I'm not gonna fucking Elizabeth Warren this, and be like, oh, my papa told me, but like, fuck, dude, like it is insane how often people are like, and then people that don't have that prejudice, like people will tell me shit like, okay, you like they're like, oh, your name is Javier. Oh my God, that's such a relief because I thought you were Arab. And I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, the experience for me on the East Coast was very different. The experience over here isn't that bad. It is kind of problematic because it is one of those places that you can sort of just be like, oh yeah, I have weird feelings about it still, like liberal people. Like upper echelons, like let's bomb them.
Yeah, like they stopped progressing in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And then like the whole thing where like they ask people like Ilhan Omar like uh what do you think? What's your stance on female vaginal mutilation? Or and it's just like that. That's the fucking that's a mega aggression. And it's sort of like this weird cultural thing where like I'm like, well, I don't want to bomb these people, but like I don't really have a stake in it because I'm not directly from the Middle East. I identify as this Latino, right?
Hmm.
And no one acknowledges that out here in Los Angeles. Everybody's like, it's just because it's so like it's the biggest Persian population
Hmm.
outside of Tehran.
Oh
And
wow.
so all these things that I learned just by looking a certain way, it's interesting. But anyway, your topic. And now watch, it's like sports cars.
Yeah, my topic. I guess the thing that really laces all of my work together is that I like to dig out things that have either been lost or purposely erased due to time and history. And all of these things relate to either like Black African American communities, Black women, and sort of erased labor.
Yes. Okay.
Um, so,
So erased labor being unrecognized, invalidated, and okay.
and like
So
sometimes
it's
even physically erased.
like, what do you mean by that?
So what's really, I guess, what really got me started um, was the rugs that we were talking about earlier, um, and
The what that you
uh,
were? Oh, the
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 rugs,
rugs. Okay.
yeah, the hair rugs. So all of those rugs are actually sized to specific plantations in the South that are currently being used as wedding venues, resorts that were once um, plantations that enslaved people and made a profit off of the labor of their bodies.
And
And
then
so,
the erasure being the fact that now it's a celebratory, like, oh, it's a plantation home. Ah,
well, like when you go to these plantation homes, they don't mention any sort of anything about having enslaved people. Um, they don't talk about the fact that
what
it
did they
was
rename
run.
the quarters that they kept the slaves in?
You know, one of the plantations I found, um, and I know this because I looked at a historical map and then I looked at a contemporary map, and maybe they rebuilt it. I don't know. I don't think so. But one of the plantations that I was looking into, their slave quarters are now bridal suites.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? So bridal suite being where the
Where
bride gets
people,
ready.
yeah.
for the wedding, like the whole bridal, like like where they separate the groom from the bride, and they can't see each other because it'll be bad luck. Not the
Yeah.
fact that they're fucking. Oh god damn it. Okay, so now I'm starting to see some stuff that maybe I'm gonna keep looking at your work
Yeah.
as you talk. Keep
And
going. So, all right.
yeah.
So tell
So
me about. No, I keep
yeah.
going is like a horrible host question. I have a question. I just have a bunch. All right. So, what area are these plantations that? This is North Carolina specifically.
These are so the plantations. There's three plantations that I focused on with this particular exhibition. Though the project in itself is ongoing, hence all the hair that I have in the basement.
Well, there's a lot of
Um,
fucking
there's a lot of
history.
plantations, and so I guess it's worth noting that I started this project before June of 2020, when everyone and their mom decided that they wanted to be woke about Black liberation, and I'm like, cool, where were you, like
It's
200 years
gone.
ago?
It's gone. It's 100% gone. It's done.
Yeah.
The fucking system has one of the crazy things that I say on this podcast. I'm sorry to interject, but I want to
Okay.
hear your thoughts on this thought. But because now they're basically making applying penal labor to immigrants that have been imprisoned,
Hmm.
which may lead to that less deportation, but like more slave labor.
Right.
And so one of the things that I learned from the George Floyd thing, and I've said this a bunch, so you can correct me if you think this is incredibly offensive, and I apologize if it is, but the reason in our society it is okay to shoot black people on the street, Sandra Bland included, everybody, is because when you are collecting property for the state, it doesn't matter if you break the property.
It's actually really interesting because actually it's not interesting, it's fucked, right? Because like history of the Black body in America, right, is being seen as property. And I don't know if we've fully been able to really claim our own bodies back, which is also really like a lot of my performance work is really me trying to reclaim my personhood. I make direct eye contact in every performance that I do, to the point where the person who's made me the art object is uncomfortable, right? Like, oh, wait, I'm looking at another human being, like I'm staring at them. Like it's part of that is sort of this sort of reclaiming of space, but also like being forced to sort of confront, those nasty things in the closet.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that myself, like I never really understood, like a character like Cyborg. When you talk to people who have this particular experience that you're talking about, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm saying black people, but it's a broader experience than that, right? Like,
Absolutely.
because I've had people on the show that are from Mexico, and I was like, yeah, but you're Mexican, and he was like, or they were, sorry,
Hmm.
they were like, Mexican is not a race, and I was like, you're fucking right. And so there's
Hmm.
little subtleties like that. But one of the things that my who I'm gonna have back on the show is Gozier. He was talking about how, and I read so much DC comics is for context, right? Like I fucking read Cyborg all the time, but
Hmm.
the fact that he is 3/5 of a person essentially, right? And I was like, oh, and for me it was such a comfort to understand that there were these subtleties that we like. Maybe I internalized it on some level,
Hmm.
right? But it matters that Cyborg is a black character, right? And because of that body element of it. So, well, I'm relieved because I was fucking. I'm not. I don't have that experience, but that was my interpretation of seeing the fucking thing with George Floyd, and that was the
Yeah.
outrage, right? But I think it's done. I think that
Oh
shit
yeah.
happens. I think that the
Everything,
black
every company
squares,
that
it's
I've
done.
ever given my email address, emailed me their diversity statement, and I haven't heard shit since.
What do you mean by that? Clarify.
Every company that I've ever given my email to, so like Bath and Body Works and
What email? What is
Starbucks,
the email?
like my email address.
And you're sending them in what context?
So like every company that like has my email
Oh
address
my
to send me like
God.
advertisements. Like they just like sent me randomly like their diversity statements, back in June, and like haven't heard shit from them since. Like no one
My
asked
camera's about
for
to
a
die.
diversity.
Sorry, just a heads
You're
up,
good.
because it's just so hot in here that it
Mm-hmm.
overheats. But I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable to keep going like this.
No, you're good.
Okay, it's gonna be so fucking weird because you can't see me nodding my head, but just understand that I'm on board. Okay, I'm 100% on
Gotcha.
board. Cause you all right? Go ahead. So
You're fine.
so when they were so like let's say you shopped at Bath and Body Works. Let me see if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
The because I work in retail right now, and
Uh-huh.
they take your email address, and the
Mm-hmm.
email that you're getting is a diversity statement. That's the only email, or are they selling you advertisements and then also telling you how good they are?
Both.
Okay.
So like you get like an email, like usually you get Bath and Body Works. But you get like an email from like
And
Bath
nope,
and Body
we're not
Works, and they're
plugging them.
like,
Fuck them.
yeah, no, whatever. But like, but like their soap being on sale, and then like randomly June 2020, you get like their diversity statement, and then like the next email you get from them is like, buy more soap, and like haven't heard anything about their diversity, anything that they're doing since. Like everyone just like had to say that they had a diversity statement, but like anything that was gonna happen or gonna come from that, nah.
I'm trying to remember something that someone said, and I hope I don't butcher it. But during that period, so basically, is Aubrey Igmar Manson was on the show, or yeah, Aubrey Igmar Manson was on the show, and she was saying that one of the things that's really fucking weird about this, like wokeism, corporate wokeism, and it happens in the military industrial complex too. Like we can't leave Afghanistan because women are gonna suffer, but we've been bombing women for we've been bombing weddings, and at a 90% civilian casualty death rate. One of the things that breaks my heart the most is how uninformed some artists are. Like I take the artist community really seriously, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's just fucking crazy to me how responsive to propaganda people can be in terms of like just this like performative thing where like dude, the black squares, I am one of the fucking things that I'm so proud of is that I just didn't buy into that shit. Like oh my god, it was just like this, like it was such a fucking empty, like we can do it from our couch. One of the people that like okay, so I love this because, and I think that you're gonna fit in great in Detroit because of the people that I've talked to, because there is it's like a sincere activist bent to the artists, but they're not activists. Like it's just a flavor in what they do. Like they're not like overtly making art about it or anything like that. It's just community support. I don't know if you know Knox Library. That's like that's the last person that had an issue scheduling, and I know they're super fucking busy, so I'm just waiting to have them on the show. But it does feel like there's this collaborative spirit that I think comes from a labor movement that's over
Mm-hmm.
there, and I'm dying for that because like I don't know, it it's it's just fucking crazy the way that everything is breaking down right now, and we don't have to get into that because it's just so overwhelming, and we're still in it, so we don't fucking like we keep going like COVID's over.
God, no. No, my prediction is we'll be living this way for at least another 3 years. People can't control themselves. Like people don't have any self-control.
I don't even think it's the people's fault. I think there's like a conservative, conservative as well, but I think there's a concerted effort to sort of. There's this sense that like you know profit margin, we're milking that fucking mentality. You got people like Bill Gates that have rebranded themselves. He was the fucking devil back in the 90s. I mean, you may be too young to remember this, but like
I am.
he was the fucking bad guy. Like he was doing the things that we're saying that China was doing that are bad.
Hmm.
He was giving away his free software to all of Africa. My dad was working against this. He worked for the UN, and he was like trying to make like free internet centers to give people access, but like it was just this attempt to just sort of like impose your control on people, and like the
Hmm.
idea of the profit motive on like the Delta variant didn't come from people not wearing their masks or not even that many people getting vaccinated. Like it's coming from Brazil, where and it's coming from country like these new variants. The whole profit motive of not sharing the patents. Like uh, Cuba came up with two vaccines, like two fucking vaccines. A socialist country with an embargo, they came up with two vaccines, and if they weren't embargoed, maybe they could have spread their vaccine, right? Like, and so I think that the objective, like I think the rest of the world, like I don't mean to be dark, but I think you're on board. The rest of the world is like a test kitchen for how they're gonna fuck us in here, and then, but like you have places like Europe that we rebuilt during the war or after the
Hmm.
war, right after we bombed the shit out of them, and we gave them healthcare. Like we built them strong, and then we made them allies, and then we made them dependent, and then we made NATO. And so like what I really like about what I'm hearing from people that I talk to in Detroit is sort of like this like movement of like it feels like the labor movement has been fucked by NAFTA, and they're trying to like like um find the mutual aid. Like, actually, I asked someone from Detroit what mutual aid meant because I didn't have a full definition of it. But it
Hmm.
essentially just the idea of like people helping each other, like communities, like which is like so fucking ancient and antiquated, but like it's where we need to go. It seems right. Like
Yeah, I mean, I'm way too young to remember anything that happened in the 90s. Um, but
you're a
I just
Zoomer, you
I
Generation
I'm a
Z.
I am the last year of millennial.
I'm the first. I'm the last year of Gen X. What up? It's gonna be weird.
I'm an I'm a younger millennial.
You're a younger millennial. Well, we
Yeah.
have the term exennial, so I don't know what your term is going to be, but it better have the word Zoomer in it.
We
Because
gotta we
Zoomer,
gotta survive for me to get a get a nickname.
oh, you won't own a house because I'm not going to own a house.
Oh God. But I want one.
I know, me too. Oh my God. All right. Well, okay. So, do you have anything that do you feel like anything has been left out? Because I don't want to keep you talking to a blank screen. It feels really unfair. There's like no visual cues, and like you're kind of vulnerable, and I'm watching you, so that feels weird too. So, but I definitely want to have you back on.
Well,
I
I
definitely.
taught for the last year and a half online, and let me tell you, I'm used to talking to a black square.
Oh my God. But now I feel like I'm George Floyding it, like the fucking 90 the Oh my God, it feels so 90s. It feels so antiquated. God damn, why did I say 90s? It feels like decades ago, the fucking George Floyd thing, and it shouldn't. It just happened last fucking year.
Well, it's been a long year. We
Yeah,
had to
but it's
live
still
through
not
an
good.
election.
Dude,
We had
remember
to
how
live
when
through that election.
yeah. Well, we now we might get into the stuff where I'm like, I don't know. That election, it's I don't know, man. Biden's the crime bill guy. It's not going well. Like he's the one that's fucking. I am happy that he pulled us out of Afghanistan. We can't do this with you not seeing my screen, but I'm happy that he pulled us out of Afghanistan. But he's a fucking senile, crazy person, and he did it absolutely insanely.
I just, I got no, I don't have enough information. but I am.
Yeah, I've watched his career. He banned raves at one point.
Wait, like the parties?
Yes. He's a fucking Nazi, dude. But anyway, he's responsible for the three strikes law. He's a bad man. We should do an episode where I just talk to you about Joe Biden. And be
Yeah.
like, this is why he is not better than Trump. Because well,
Yeah.
I basically don't think that the world runs with either of them in charge. I think like there could be no one in charge. I think it's I think okay, we used to have like I'm sorry, this is
You're
dragging out.
fine.
Okay, so the monarchy, right? You know how the
Hmm.
British have the Queen
Hmm.
and the Prime Minister. So you have the
Hmm.
state of head, that's the Prime Minister, and then you have the figurehead, or maybe I'm reversing them, but that's the separation of those two,
Hmm.
right? So you had an institution that was the monarchy, that was like the old stuffy motherfuckers, and then you had and they kept the each other in check. Whatever, checks and balances are technically bullshit anyway, in all capacities. But when you come over here, you just have the president who essentially with the monarchy is the military industrial complex because of imperialism, and then you have the fucking figurehead being like people like Obama, which like you have it doesn't matter like if it's George W. Bush, it doesn't matter if it's Clinton, they're all just pushing the same things. Like NAFTA, going back to like Detroit, NAFTA was a fucking thing where like where basically you had Herbert Walker Bush, the first George W, the Gulf War president. So he
Yeah.
couldn't pass NAFTA, and then the new Democrats came in, and then they passed NAFTA, and they fucked this entire country. While they were like, at the same time, they were like, oh, sweatshops are horrible, and like they basically empowered sweatshops. So it's just this fucking crazy like it's like bipolar politics in this country. It's insane. Just like because you have to like, and then before that was what they did before they had gayness on their side, right? Like now that like they used to fight gayness, and now like with gayness, like uh, with being pro LGBT, because they used to be anti, like even during the Obama years, they weren't like until like Biden fucked up, right? They were not pro LGBT at all. They were like, we need to have civil unions. What we can't corrupt marriage, right? And so like now that's what it now it's become a complete culture war. Anyway,
Mm.
I'm rambling on, but there's a lot of fucking history that makes these like like if you're a leftist, bro, ooh, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. I know for me, I felt real unsafe with the rhetoric. Like, people got real bold during the Trump years, like, real bold with their, like, outward racism.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, I
Well,
don't
you're also
know.
in the South, and in like you're probably visiting your family back home.
Yeah, I mean, like, the South, Ohio, basically everywhere I've been in the in the last 4 years,
But
which is a lot of
what
places.
and I totally get that, but what my concern is the sinister lab kitchen theory, right? Like where it's like we are bombing black and brown people all the time. We're bombing Somalia, which is the poorest country in the world,
Okay,
right?
I
Like
mean, like,
as we're
I
pulling
don't
out of
think
Afghanistan,
a ton.
out
Like,
of Afghanistan.
I mean, like, I can't. Like, I don't necessarily think that like everyone on the left is like a good person for
Hmm.
any, because you can't judge people just by their like black and white ideologies, like what you're either one or the other. Um, and I think, like, yeah, politicians are like, there's a reason they're politicians, right? Like,
Yeah.
no one that's completely sane has ever been like, you know what, I want to be president. You know, like, that takes ego. It takes like a certain amount of want and grab for power. Um, and so I think for me, it's just like, the not the devil I know, but the situation that I want to combat for the next 4 years.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I find this conversation incredibly interesting, and I want to continue it at a later date. I think that there's a lot to talk there, and I think
Mhm.
that you have a really, really, really good perspective, uh, and I'm very excited about talking to you again.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe
I
we'll cover
really
art next
appreciate.
time.
What's that?
Maybe we'll talk more about art next time.
Oh, we did. I talked about your art for such a long time. I'm really impressed by your work. Uh,
Thank
what's it called? No, yeah, I usually don't. Well, this is not really an art podcast. It's an art podcast where artists come on, and because it's like talking about visual stuff is really boring, but I felt like there was some really interesting stuff in the way that you were using textiles. And then we ended up talking about some more interesting stuff.
Contemporary.
Well, I think that your experience is interesting because you're not from Detroit, you're from the South, and I think we have a little bit of overlap in that. I
Mhm.
think that I basically sounds like I have like at least a decade on you, and so I have this
I'm
baggage.
27.
You're 27? Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
41, so I definitely have at least a decade on you. So what I'm saying is that your perspective is valid to me. So I don't want to end it with arguing what you're saying. No, no, no. I don't think you're wrong. I think what I love about these conversations is that you have a different experience. And you are the first person that told me, literally, you are the first person that told me that the racism that you were experiencing in your daily life was more overwhelming when Trump was in person, that I can actually buy that shit. I've only had white women tell me that.
Oh, how would you know?
And so now that you tell me that, I definitely want to continue this conversation because I always know that I'm not right about everything. I just know that I have ideas, you know? So I really want to hear what you have to say about this. Let's end it here. I really appreciate you. I'm sorry it's so fucking hot here that my GoPro died. I
It's
need to get a better
okay.
camera. I really appreciate you humoring me through this. At the end of conversations, when you get to know somebody, sometimes you want to, like, usually the conversation ends when I say the thing about how like it's okay to collect black people to kill black people as property when you're collecting them as property. I mean, it's not okay, but you know that whole concept that we got going on.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate that part of the conversation because I'm a fucking lunatic and I'm just like a guy that looks maybe Arab sometimes. So I have ideas, but the fact that you were able to expound on that gives profundity to the idea that like we should keep talking about George Floyd.
No, we should definitely keep talking about George Floyd. I mean, I'm just one black girl from North Carolina. I can't give you permission, but
Oh no, I don't feel like you gave me permission to say
I
that.
know, just
But no, no,
for your
I'm gonna
viewers.
say that, and then if someone pushes back, I'm gonna adjust it. But I do think that that's a reality because of 13. I mean, I learned all of this publicly on the show. I didn't even know what the 13th Amendment was until I started talking. Like, you know, dude, we watched the dude put his fucking knee on someone's neck. I
Well,
mean,
I
that
actually I never watched the video. I couldn't do it.
I did, and I'm never gonna watch it again.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah,
maybe it should be watched more.
it's the last video that I watched of a black person dying was in 2016 when I believe it was Philando Castile that died on Facebook Live.
I didn't know
That
he
was
died on Facebook Live. That's so
yeah,
like long ago that I don't
I
even
believe
remember that.
I
No, no,
believe it
you're
was
probably
Philando
right.
Castile.
You definitely right. I'm not
So,
questioning it. You
I mean,
can't see my
well,
face. There's no feedback from
there were
me.
two murders that summer, and I want to say it was Philando Castile, but I could be wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, let's promote your stuff, even though it's a really dark thing to end on. Philando Castile getting murdered, but I
That's
do.
America.
It is. It definitely is. And you also have some really interesting visual stuff. There's one thing where you have a car in front of a person lifting up a house, which I really there's some imagery that even though like they're not even lifting up the house, they're lifting up the front of the house. You are a master of visual subtlety because all of this stuff is here. Now that I've spoken to you, I really, really appreciate your work. I'm very
Thank you.
excited to have met you. I really like. I definitely want you to be back on the show, where you can see my face for the entire episode.
Sounds
And
great.
thank you so much. All right, so you are Quinnie94,
Yes.
Quinnie 94.
Yes.
That's when you were born, and that was one of my best years when I was like 14 years old. And what's it called? And do you have other stuff that we can promote? A website? Is it
Yeah,
outdated?
it's just no, it's I mean, I haven't
It's up to
posted
date.
it's semi up
It's
to date. The
a
project that I'm like,
artist up to date.
yeah, it's artist up to date.
And
It's
what is it?
Quinn and then a hunter.com.
All right. And thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening. It has been definitely an interesting one. We've taken you through all the southern East Coast in a very weird way. Bro, I didn't know anything about Minnesota until George Floyd died. Signing off. What did you think of our conversation? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our merch store. Special thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, go to patreon.com/whatsmythesis. All the links are in the description below.